Welcome back to That Philly Sports Girl. I'm your host, Elise Person, and yesterday the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the Green Bay Packers 30-16, sending our overall record to 3-8-1, putting us pretty far out of reach out of any playoff hopes, actually statistically down to 8% chance of making the playoffs. So that's not looking too likely, but even in the loss, Eagles fans for the first time yesterday got to see what our top two draft picks can really do. Granted, it wasn't until the second half of play that we had to sit through a pretty painful first half of offensive play, but it was so great to finally see Jalen Reagor and Jalen Hurts go to work. Jalen Hurts did not play a perfect game, but he still played a little bit more consistent and a little better than Carson Wentz has all season. Jalen Hurts was throwing dimes. I'm going to ignore his one pick. I feel like I'm a little immune to picks after watching Carson Wentz all this season, so I'm just going to ignore that one pick. But other than that, he was placing balls perfectly. Throwing right over the shoulder, placing it away from the defender where they couldn't grab it, and just putting balls exactly where they needed to be, unlike what we've seen from Carson Wentz all season with Carson Wentz's inaccurate passes. Jalen Hurts came in and went to work and was succeeding in his offense right away. Jalen Hurts was 5 for 12 with 109 yards and one touchdown pass. I also can't ignore our first-round draft pick, Jalen Reagor, with his 73-yard punt return. That punt return put us in hand's reach of coming away with a win. Unfortunately, our defense couldn't hold off the Packers. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I just think it is super important to acknowledge the plays being made by our first and second round draft picks. I just think that there has been a lot of heat and controversy around these two draft picks. I'm not going to sit here and defend those draft picks either, but I do think it was really nice to finally see some offensive production be made by these first two draft picks. And I'm really excited to see what happens in the rest of the season coming forward, what these two picks can do for us. So moving on from that, I do want to talk about the offense as a whole, because as a whole, the offense really was not that great. The first half, there was essentially no offense happening whatsoever. There really wasn't any offense happening until Jalen Hurts came into the game and made a spark happen. But we really cannot ignore the first half of play. The first half of yesterday's offense, and really this whole season, has been a combination of below average play by Carson Wentz, poor blocking and protection by the offensive line, and the wide receivers' inability to get open. I don't think that the first half all falls on Carson Wentz. I think that it's a combination of Wentz, the O-line, and the receivers. I think they're all partially to blame for the lack of offense in the first half and really throughout the season up until now. Yesterday, Carson Wentz was 6 for 15 and was sacked 4 times before taken out in the third quarter and Jalen Hurts put in the game. To me, those numbers do not fall all on Carson Wentz. I think that they fall on the O-line for lack of protection. They fall on the receivers for their inability to get open and make plays. But you can't ignore the fact that the numbers do play a role in Carson Wentz, because at the end of the day, it's his numbers that he's putting up. He's not making the plays happen, and he was 6 for 15 with 79 yards. I want to look quickly at Aaron Rodgers' numbers last night compared to Wentz's and Hurts' numbers combined. Aaron Rodgers finished last night 25 for 34 with 295 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is numbers coming from a quarterback whose offense plays together and is all on the same page. There were only 9 drop passes from the Packers offense, 9 incompletes in total. A few of them 100% should have been caught, and I think that we actually saw Aaron Rodgers' frustration pretty clearly last night, just in his facial expressions and his body language with those drop passes, and those drop passes fall on the receivers. But altogether, Aaron Rodgers and his offense put up some pretty great numbers. You had to have noticed Rodgers' time in the pocket. Credit must go to his offensive line for protecting him. Rodgers was only sacked twice in yesterday's game. But 25 receptions. His receivers are getting open and catching balls. He's a great quarterback. We cannot deny Aaron Rodgers. Regardless, his offensive line, receivers, he is just a stand-up quarterback. Fabulous. And we just can't ignore that. But I also do think at the end of the day, his numbers don't need to be so drastically different than Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz's combined stats, because I do think at the end of the day, Wentz and Hurts are both pretty decent quarterbacks, but they don't have an offense that is playing all together. Hurts and Wentz's combined stats are 11 for 27 with 161 yards and 1 touchdown pass. Wentz was sacked 4 times and Hurts twice, and they were consistently rushed in the pocket and forced to scramble. Together, they had 11 catches out of 27 balls thrown, meaning that 16 passes were either dropped or incomplete. Granted, some were bad balls, not going to ignore that, but 16 incomplete passes a game also makes me look at the quality of routes and ability to get open on the receiver's end. I do not think that the Eagles' offense is playing as a solid unit, and I don't think that until that improves, I really don't think that whoever is under center is going to have that much success with the Eagles offense. Yes, super excited about Jalen Hurts. And, we have to talk about who is going to start next week. I think it has to be Jalen Hurts. But I also don't think that he's going to have extreme success with the Eagles offensive line and the Eagles wide receivers right now. So I know I just said we need to start Jalen Hurts next week. So let's talk about that a little bit. It's got to be Jalen Hurts. He showed up yesterday, he was ready to play, and I think that he earned his starting spot yesterday. He sat on the bench practically all season, and then in the drop of a hat, he was ready to go in, and he showed up. He has been prepared all season, and I think that really showed through last night with his very first drive and a complete pass. While Hurts was under center, the Eagles were able to put up 2 touchdowns on the board in 1 minute and 22 seconds. Granted, one was a punt return by Jalen Reagor, but that is the best numbers we've really seen offensively all season, especially as the Eagles are still in the hunt for playoffs. Technically, very slim chance, but they are still in the hunt for the playoffs. I think we have to put our best hand forward, and I think that hand is Jalen Hurts under center. Moving on to the defense, I was not happy with the defense yesterday. I was excited at the very first drive. I was like, oh man, here we go. We're going to have another week like last. But we came out hot to start, having Aaron Rodgers and his offense being held to 3 and out. But after that, there really was nothing special happening on the defensive end. The Packers picked up 295 yards in the passing game, with Davante Adams having 121 yards and 10 receptions. And they were also able to rush for 149 yards, with Aaron Jones having 130 yards and 15 carries. To me, that's not good defense across the board. We weren't able to stop them in the passing game, in the run game, and we couldn't stop them when it really counted. The defense allowed Aaron Jones to run for a 77-yard touchdown when we were down a single possession. Aaron Jones' touchdown took the Packers' lead from a 7-point lead to a 14-point lead with 2 minutes and 36 seconds left. Usually I feel like the Eagles' defense is much better against the run than what we saw yesterday. Typically, I've always been someone that I'm like, why does anybody even run the ball against the Eagles' defense? Throw it. If I was the other team's offensive coordinator, I'd be like, we're going to throw it all day against the Eagles. But yesterday, the Eagles were not that hot in the run game. So they typically are better, so I'm not sure what the breakdown was yesterday, but I think that they need to be more consistent. And talking about consistency, a consistent issue with the Eagles defense is the Eagles secondary. 295 yards in the passing game is embarrassing. I don't care who we're playing. I don't care that it's Aaron Rodgers or somebody's third stringer. 295 yards is a lot of yards in the passing game. There were some long balls thrown by Rodgers that there wasn't even an Eagles defense in sight as the Packers were catching it. And unfortunately, another consecutive game by Darius Slay where he is just getting cooked. Before last week's performance against DK Metcalf, I really felt like Darius Slay was having a pretty decent year. But after yesterday's performance against Davante Adams, I gotta say I am a little frustrated with his play. Devontae Adams had 121 yards and 10 receptions and 2 touchdowns. I just got to see better coverage by Darius Slay. I don't care that Devontae Adams is one of the league's top receivers. I need to see better play by Darius Slay. Slay did head into the locker room late in yesterday's game with a knee injury, and he did enter yesterday's game questionable with a calf injury. So now add a knee injury on top of that. I am not sure about his status going into next week, and I am interested to watch the updates as those come in. So now let's look at how the rest of the NFC faced off this weekend. The Giants pulled away from the NFC East playoffs run as the Giants' backup quarterback, Colt McCoy, and his squad take down the Seattle Seahawks 17-12. Colt McCoy finished the day 13 for 22 with 105 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. The once 0-5 Giants are now atop of the NFC East with an overall record of 5-7. Tonight, the 4-7 Washington football team takes on the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers at 5 p.m. And tomorrow night, the Washington football team takes on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in a game that has been rescheduled twice because of a recent coronavirus outbreak within the Ravens. Looking ahead to next week, as the Eagles are back at the Link taking on the New Orleans Saints, I think the Eagles have to start Jalen Hurts. The Eagles are 1.5 games behind the Giants and first place. So the playoff appearance is still there, still kind of in reach, and I think that if we want to get there, we got to start Jalen Hurts. Doug Peterson said after the game last night that he's going to need some time to think about who he's going to be starting this upcoming weekend, but to me, it's a clear-cut answer, and that answer is Jalen Hurts. I think Eagles defensively need to clean up in the passing game, in the run game. I think that just really need to clean it up everywhere. But I really think the Eagles' D-line must be ready for the run game, especially with Saints quarterback Taysom Hill and his rushing yards throughout the season. So that's going to do it for this week. I'm That Philly Sports Girl. Thank you so much for tuning in.